Hello to everyone on YouTube. Hey, Ray Ray. Welcome, Night Dwellers. This is the Night Realm. I am the Night Queen, and tonight I am telling you a story of the Springfield 3. Have you heard of it? If you have, let me know in the comments, along with your other Night Dweller family. But first, if this is your first time in Twisted Tales Live, we have a ritual of how to go into story time, don't we? If you like, you can do it along with us. Hey, Penny. Lower your lights. Lock your doors. Light a candle for ambiance. To chase those shadows away, perhaps. Pull your curtains nice and tight. Wrap yourself in your warmest blanket to avoid the chills that are about to crawl up your spine. And let's begin with the Springfield 3. Let me know in the comments. I'm ready, Bryn. As always, I would like to first introduce you to the Springfield 3. Three women. These three women disappeared in one night under the same roof, no less. There was no blood, no signs of a struggle. It was as if they had vanished into thin air. Where did they go? Disappeared. Now let's begin the story. There are many theories on this one. Welcome, my dark disciples, to another descent into the abyss of human mystery. I am your Night Queen. Hello, Mia. And tonight we venture into a darkness so profound. It has swallowed 3 souls whole. Gone. Vanished. leaving behind only questions that echo through time like screams in an empty house. June the 7th, 1992, Springfield, Missouri. A night that should have been filled with graduation celebrations and young dreams taking flight. Instead, it became the beginning of a nightmare that refused to end. A void so complete that not even shadows remain. Tonight, we speak the names that the darkness claimed. Suzanne Streeter, Stacy McCall, and Cheryl Levitt. 3 women, 3 lives, 3 mysteries that merged into one haunting question that has tormented investigators and families for over 3 decades. Are you ready, night dwellers, to walk with me through this labyrinth of terror? To feel the cold breath of the unknown on your neck? Then settle in. For once you enter this realm, you may find that some mysteries are too dark to ever truly escape. The Springfield 3 awaits us in the shadows. Chapter 1, The Golden Girls. Hello. Who were these beautiful souls before darkness claimed them? Before we can understand the magnitude of what was lost, we dear night dwellers, we must first know who walked in the light before the shadows consumed them. Hey, Marine Store 10. First, I will introduce you to Cheryl Levitt. Cheryl Elizabeth Levitt, 47 years old. A woman whose laughter could fill a room and whose spirit burned bright despite life's trials. Picture her, if you will. Honey blonde hair catching the sunlight, green eyes that sparkled with mischief and warmth. Those who knew her described a woman who lived fully, loved deeply, and faced every challenge with fierce determination. Cheryl was like a second mother to all of Susie's friends. Her sister Debbie would later recall, with tears streaming down her face. Cheryl never met a stranger. She never met anyone that she didn't seem like she already knew. She opened her heart and her home to everyone. She was everything bright in this world, and I miss her terribly. Cheryl worked as a hairstylist at the local salon. Her friends commented on how talented she was in changing a look. Her hands created beauty, while her voice offered comfort to every client who sat in her chair. How are you doing today? Well, aren't your daughters just getting pretty as peaches? They are just so lovely. You are so blessed. She had built a life of quiet contentment in her modest home at 1717 East Delmar Street, a sanctuary that she shared with her beloved daughter, Suzanne. And oh, what a daughter she had raised. Suzanne, or as they called her, Susie Streeter. She was 19 years old, graduating senior from Kickapoo High School. If Cheryl was sunshine, then Susie was starlight. Beautiful, brilliant, with long blonde hair that cascaded like silk, and eyes that held both innocence and wisdom beyond her years. Susie was the girl that everyone wanted to be friends with. Remembered her classmate, Jennifer. Susie wasn't popular because she was mean or exclusive. She was popular because she genuinely cared about people. She remembered your birthday, asked about your sick grandmother. She defended you when others wouldn't. Yeah, that was her. Susie had dreams, night dwellers. Dreams of college, of traveling, of making her mark on the world. She worked part-time, saved her money, and planned for a future that stretched out before her like an endless highway of possibilities. She was accepted to Southwest Missouri State University, ready to begin the next chapter of her story. But it wasn't just her own family that loved her. There was another family across town whose daughter had become Susie's closest friend. Their bond forged in the fires of teenage friendship and sealed with secrets, dreams, and midnight phone calls. And finally, there was Stacy Dawn McCall. She was 18 years old, a petite brunette with a smile that could melt hearts and a spirit as adventurous as her best friends. Where Susie was tall and willowy, Stacy was small and energetic. Where Susie was thoughtful and measured, Stacy was spontaneous and bold. Together, they were unstoppable. First person, Stacy's mother. They were like sisters. They did everything together. Stacy's mother, Janice, would whisper through her tears years later. They were different as night and day, yes, but they connected by something deeper than their friendship. They finished each other's sentences, they shared each other's clothes, and never went anywhere important without the other. And I'm telling you, whatever happened to them on that night, they protected each other. Stacy lived with her parents and younger brother in a loving home filled with family photos and the sound of laughter. There was nothing sinister in these two homes, nothing at all. She too was a graduating senior, and she was ready to spread her wings, just like her best friend. Her parents had worked hard to give her opportunities that they had never had, and she was determined to make them proud. But here in my Night Dwellers is where our story takes its first dark turn. For you see, these three women, mother, daughter, and chosen family, were about to face a celebration that would become their last. The night of June the 6th, 1992, was graduation night at Kickapoo High School. A night of caps and gowns, proud parents and bright futures. A night when young people traditionally stay up way past midnight. Way past dawn, for that matter. Savoring the last moments of childhood before stepping into the adult world. It was a night when no one expected danger to come calling. Little did they know, Night Dwellers, that somewhere in the shadows of Springfield, something malevolent was already stirring. Something that would turn celebration into catastrophe. Transformation joy into horror, and ensure that these three beautiful souls will never see another sunrise. Question: what bonds do you think made these three women so special that their disappearance would haunt an entire community for decades? Are you trying to decide what happened to them yet? Chapter 2, the night of the celebration. How did a perfect evening turn into a perfect storm? June the 6th, 1992, Night Dwellers. A Saturday night that would begin with all the promise in the world and ended, well, we're searching for that ending, aren't we? The graduation ceremony at Kickapoo High School had been everything families dream of. Proud parents dabbing their eyes with tissues, cameras flashing like stars, and the sound of pomp and circumstance echoing through the gymnasium. Susie Streeter and Stacy McCall sat side by side in their caps and gowns, whispering and giggling like the teenage girls they still were, even as they prepared to become women. "We did it," Stacy had whispered to Susie as they waited for their names to be called. "We actually made it through high school!" "This is just the beginning," Susie whispered back, her eyes bright with dreams. "We're gonna take on the world together, boo." After the ceremony, both families gathered for photos and congratulations. Cheryl Levitt beamed with pride as she hugged her daughter, her heart full of a mother's joy and hope. "I'm so proud of you, baby. So proud of you. You go out there and knock them dead like I never did." "Mama, you were a good mama. You taught me everything that I needed to know. I love you." The McCall family had surrounded their youngest daughter, showering her with love and excitement about her future. The graduation night in any small American town has its own rhythm, its own traditions. And for teenagers, the real celebration doesn't begin until their parents go home and the night becomes theirs. This is where our story begins to spiral, my dark children, into something none of them could have imagined. The original plan was simple and innocent. The girls were going to attend several graduation parties around town. That was the plan. And then they were going to spend the night at Janelle Kirby's house, along with 2 other friends. A sleepover. Perfectly normal. A celebration. A perfect end to their high school careers. They started their evening at one of the many graduation parties scattered across Springfield. The night was warm, full of laughter and music and promise, familiar faces and fond farewells. Susie and Stacy moved through the party like the popular girls that they were. They were pretty, they were smart, they were outgoing, they were hugging classmates, taking pictures, making promises to keep in touch. All the things that we do on graduation night. But something happened. Something around 10:30 p.m. The evening took its first unexpected turn. Hey, there's another party, someone mentioned. It's in Mike Clay's house. Everyone's going to be there. Come on, let's pile in and go over. Mike Clay. A name that would later become crucial in our story, though none of them knew it then. The girls looked at each other with that wordless communication that only best friends share. Should we go? I mean, I don't really know him all that well, Stacy asked. Why not? Susie replied. It's our graduation night. Let's live. Let's live. Let's live. Little did they know, night dwellers, that this simple decision, this innocent choice to attend one more party, would set in motion a chain of events that would shatter families and haunt a community forever. Let's switch to the party in Mark Clay's house. It was crowded, loud. The yard was filled with cars and the streets, filled with the kind of energy that comes from teenagers celebrating freedom. But for reasons that would later seem almost prophetic, the girls didn't stay long. A few of the other girls that were there that night said that they kept talking about something about the atmosphere, the crowd, the vibe. It wasn't what they wanted for their special night. Let's get up of here. I'm just not feeling it, Stacy said to Susie around 11 p.m. This just isn't our seat tonight. I wish we had stayed at the other party or went to one of those other ones. Agreed, Susie nodded. Let's go to Janelle's like we planned. But here, my night dwellers, is where fate dealt its cruelest hand. When they arrived at the Kirby home, they found the house already crowded with other partygoers and friends. The atmosphere was chaotic, just like in Mike Clay's. Not the intimate celebration that they had envisioned for their graduation night. They had pictured girls and movies and popcorn and pajamas and curling each other's hair and putting on makeup, talking about their favorite boys on movies. But Susie pulled Stacy aside. You know what? Let's just go to my house instead. It's too loud here. Mom's probably asleep by now. And we can have the whole place to ourselves. We can order pizza, watch movies, talk all night like we used to. Okay, you won me over, Stacy said. It was 12:30 a.m. Now, technically, June the 7th, when the decision was made. A decision that seemed so natural, so innocent, so perfectly reasonable, right? They called Cheryl's house to let her know they were coming home instead of staying at Janelle's. The phone rang and rang, but there was no answer, which was strange, perhaps, but not alarming. Maybe she was already sleeping deeply, or perhaps she'd gone to bed early after the emotional day of her daughter's graduation. She's probably just tired, Susie reasoned. You know how emotional she gets about big events. She's probably used a whole box of Kleenex by now. So they made their choice, Night Dwellers. A choice that would echo through time like a scream in an empty house. They would arrive at home. They would drive to 1717 East Delmar Street, to Cheryl Levitt's modest home, where they planned to spend the night celebrating, dreaming, and planning their futures. They had no way of knowing, though, that Cheryl Levitt, she was already gone. They had no way of knowing that when they walked through that front door, they would be walking into a nightmare from which they would never return. As they drove through the quiet streets of Springfield in the early morning hours of June the 7th, 1992, Susie and Stacy were still laughing, still dreaming, still alive with possibility. In less than 1 hour, Night Dwellers, all three of them, Cheryl, Susie, and Stacy, would vanish from the face of the earth as if they had never existed at all. I have a question for you. Have you ever made a last-minute decision that completely changed the course of your life? What if that decision led you into darkness? Chapter 3, The House of Secrets. What evil lurked within these walls? 1717, East Delmar Street, night dwellers. To most who passed by, it appeared to be nothing more than a modest rancho in a quiet Springfield neighborhood. Single story, well maintained, with a small front yard and a driveway that led to hopes and dreams, an ordinary life. But on this night, this cursed night of June the 7th, 1992, this house had become something else entirely. A trap, a void, a doorway between the world of the living and something far more sinister. Picture it, if you dare. It's now approximately 1:30 a.m. The streets are empty except for the occasional streetlight, casting pale pools of yellow light on the asphalt. The air is warm and humid, thick with the promise of summer. You know the feeling. Most of Springfield sleeps peacefully, unaware that horror is about to unfold in their midst. Susie's car pulls into the driveway of her mother's home. The headlights sweep across the front of the house, illuminating the porch where Cheryl had stood just hours before, waving goodbye to neighbors, never knowing it would be the last time that anyone would ever see her alive. Susie squints her eyes. Looks like Mom left the porch light on for us. Yeah, she's definitely in bed. Though, something in her voice suggested a hint of unease. She couldn't quite name. What was it? Maybe she's just tired, right? The house looked normal, peaceful, even. But sometimes night dwellers, the most horrific evil, wears the mask of normalcy. I don't know about you, but I want to go in and I want to get a Pepsi and I want to take off my makeup and I want to put on my pajamas. That's what I want to do. And I second that. Hey, where are you thinking about ordering pizza from? I don't know. I mean, I guess we could get it from Domino's. Yeah, I guess that'll work. They gather their purses, their arms full of graduation gifts, their overnight bag. Stacy stretched as she got out of the car, breathing in the night air. Are we really graduated from high school? Yep, we sure are. I don't know, it almost seems so surreal. I don't know if I'm going to be able to sleep tonight. I'm tired. She yawned. But I'm also too excited to sleep. Do you think that's even possible? Of course it's possible. It's been a long day. I'm going to say that by the time that we get in bed and my head hits the pillow, I'm going to be out. Yeah, me too, probably. Stacy dropped a package. Susie bent down to pick it up. She placed it back in her arms. You know, we say that we're going to go in there to go to bed, but you're probably right. We're probably going to be up till the early morning hours. Yeah, definitely. Susie laughed. Even though her laughter seemed to echo strangely in the stillness of the night. None of them could put their hand on or their very finger on what it was. But something was wrong. They walked up the front steps, their footsteps echoing on the empty porch. The porch was wooden, and with their high heels they made tapping sounds. Susie reached for her keys, fumbling slightly in the darkness despite the porch light's glow. But when she turned the handle, the door was already unlocked. Would you go in your house at 1:30 a.m. in the morning if your door was unlocked? That's weird, Susie murmured, pausing with her hand still on the doorknob. Mama always locks the door. Always, even when she knows I'm coming home. Maybe she left it open because she knew we were coming, Stacy suggested, though her voice carried its own note of uncertainty. They pushed open the door and stepped into the darkness. And that, my precious night dwellers, was the last time anyone would ever see Suzanne Streeter and Stacy McCall alive. But this is the question. What happened in those moments after they crossed the threshold? This is what has baffled investigators for years. What horror awaited them in the darkness of that seemingly innocent home? The next morning would bring investigators who would find a scene both baffling and terrifying. Cheryl's sister was supposed to come over and they were supposed to go to breakfast together. She wanted to cheer her up because she was indeed sad that Susie had graduated and that her daughter would be leaving home soon. When she arrived at the house, though, the door was unlocked and it appeared undisturbed, as if life had simply just stopped. Cheryl's bed had been slept in, but the covers were pulled back as if she had been awakened suddenly. Her cigarettes and lighter were on the nightstand, along with the book she'd been reading, open to a page that she would never finish. In the living room, investigators would find Susie's purse, car keys, and the graduation gifts that she had received the day before. Everything placed carefully, almost deliberately, as if someone wanted to send a message. They made it home. They were here. But where were they now? That was the question. The television was on, and it was turned to a channel that Cheryl often watched. In the kitchen, there were dishes in the sink from her dinner the night before. Mel sat unopened on the counter. Everything suggested a normal evening that had suddenly, inexplicably been interrupted. But what? But perhaps most chilling of all, night dwellers, were the things that were missing. Cheryl's car was gone from the garage. 3 women had vanished. Yet there were no signs of struggle. Not one sign. No evidence of forced entry beyond the mysteriously unlocked door. No blood. Not one drop. No screams the neighbors reported hearing. No one heard anything. It was as if something had reached into that house and simply erased them. Plucked them from existence as easily as blowing out a candle. But wait. There was something else. Something that would haunt investigators and add another layer of terror to an already impossible case. That same night, at approximately 8 a.m. on June the 7th, just hours after the girls had disappeared, a strange, disturbing phone call had been made to the Levitt house. The caller? Unknown. The voice? Described by the person who answered as sexual, disturbing, clearly obscene. The message? A string of explicit, threatening words that seemed designed to shock and terrorize. But here's what makes this call so chilling, night dwellers. The person who received this call was not Cheryl. It was not Susie. It was not Stacy. It was someone who had come to the house looking for the missing women. Someone who had answered the phone hoping to hear a familiar voice, and instead heard something from a nightmare. So tell me, night dwellers, what kind of evil can make 3 people disappear without a trace? What darkness can reach into a home and still souls so completely that even the shadows refuse to remember them? In that modest house on Delmar Street, something had occurred that defied explanation, defied logic, defied every assumption we make about safety and sanctuary and the simple act of coming home. The house stood empty now, but it was no longer innocent. It had become a monument to the impossible, a testament to the truth that some evils are so profound they leave holes in reality itself. Question, night dwellers. What do you think is more terrifying? Evidence of a struggle, or the complete absence of any evidence at all? Nothing. Not a drop of blood. Nothing out of place. Nothing. Chapter 4. The morning after. When does worry become terror? Sunday morning, June the 7th, 1992. Night dwellers. The sun rose over Springfield just as it had every morning for thousands of years. But something fundamental had changed in the fabric of reality. 3 women. Let me remind you of that again. Not 1. 3 women had disappeared from a household. 1 car was gone. No evidence of any struggle. No blood to be found. Nothing missing. What is your theory? Right now, at this point in the story, 3 women had been swallowed by the darkness, and the world was about to discover their nightmares turned in with the dawn. Janelle Kirby woke up around 9 a.m. in her home, expecting to hear from her friends about their sleepover at her house. The sleepover that never happened. If you remember, Stacy and Susie were supposed to sleep there, but they left. When she called the Levitt house, the phone rang and rang with no answer. That's strange, she thought, but not yet alarmed. Teenagers sleep late after graduation parties. It was perfectly normal. But as the morning wore on and still no one answered at the Levitt house, Janelle decided to drive over to East Delmar Street. Maybe they were sleeping so soundly they couldn't hear the phone. Maybe they'd unplugged it to avoid being disturbed. Maybe their mother was gone and they just didn't hear it because their bedroom was located at the back of the hall. When she arrived at 1717 East Delmar Street around 11:30 a.m., Janelle noticed several things immediately. 1. Susie's car was in the driveway. The house appeared quiet, normal, undisturbed, but no one answered when she knocked on the door. Using her key, Janelle was like family to Susie and Stacy, and she had been trusted with access to their home. She let herself inside and she was calling out cheerfully. Susie! Stacy! Are you guys still sleeping? It's almost noon. Hey, do y'all want to go grab a burger? Silence. silence of people sleeping, night dwellers. No. This was something else entirely. This was the silence of emptiness, of absence, of a house that had been drained of all life and warmth. Janelle walked through the house, her footsteps echoing strangely in the stillness. In the living room, she found Susie's purse, her car keys, her graduation gifts, all the things that should have been with Susie if she had left voluntarily. The television was still on, showing the morning news to an empty room. Janelle began to search. Susie? She walked down the hallway. She tapped on Miss Levitt's door. Miss Levitt? Stacy? She called again, but the house seemed to swallow her words. She walked down toward the end of the hallway, where Susie's bedroom was. It hadn't been touched. The bed was still made. Cheryl's bed was the only one that was unmade, as if she had been sleeping then suddenly got up. But where was she? Where were any of them? It was then, as Janelle stood in the empty house trying to make sense of what she was seeing, that the telephone rang. She answered it, hoping and praying to hear one of her friends' voices. Instead, what she heard was something that would haunt her for the rest of her life. A man's voice, crude and menacing, speaking words so obscene and threatening that Janelle slammed down the phone in shock and terror. But not before she heard something in that voice. It was a tone that suggested the caller knew exactly who she was and exactly what had happened in that house. The phone rang again. Janelle picked it up. Hey there, pretty girl. Who are you? Do you really want to know who I am? I can see you standing there. She hung the phone up. The caller knew night dwellers. Somehow, impossibly, he knew about the missing women before anyone else ever even realized that they were gone. But this time, it was afternoon, and families were beginning to worry. Stacy's parents, Janice and Stuart McCall, expected their daughter home by now. Where is she? Where does she go? We're trying to figure that out, sir, an investigator said. When she didn't arrive and didn't answer their phone, they too drove to the Levitt house. Picture this scene. Multiple cars arriving at this modest house. Friends and family and members converging with growing anxiety. Did you hear anything? Where are they? Were they planning a trip or something that they didn't want to tell us about? Was that what Cheryl was doing? Did she plan a trip for Susie and Stacy and didn't inform us? But that's not like her to do that. Janelle meeting them at the door with terror in her eyes, trying to explain what she found, or rather, what she hadn't found. One of the friends that was an investigator She said, let's go in and just take a look. Janice McCall, Stacy's mother, would later recall saying, their purses are here, their keys are here. I'm telling you, Stacy would never go anywhere without her purse. That thing was glued to her. Never. Something's wrong. Something's terribly, terribly wrong here. Her husband walked up and put his hand on her shoulder. Let's not go to those extremes yet. We don't know that. I can feel it in my gut. Something is wrong. Stuart McCall, a man who had served in law enforcement, he immediately recognized the signs, though he didn't want to tell his wife. This wasn't teenagers sleeping late or forgetting to call home. This was something else entirely. At 3:15 p.m. on June the 7th, 1992, the first official call was made to the Springfield Police Department. We need to report 3 missing persons, Stuart McCall told the dispatcher, his voice steady despite the growing dread in his heart. It's a woman and 2 teenage girls. One of them is my daughter. They were here last night and they are gone now, and something's not right. All right, Officer McCall, we will have someone out to the house immediately. Within an hour, the house at 1717 East Delmar Street was swarming with investigators. Detective Tony Glenn, Sergeant Mike Clay, who was no relation to the Mark Clay who had hosted the party, so I want to put you all at ease there, and other members of the Springfield Police Department began what would become one of the most baffling cases in Missouri history. What they found defied every assumption about how people disappear. There were no signs of struggle, no forced entry at all, no blood or evidence of violence. The women's belongings were present and undisturbed, but the women themselves, they had simply vanished into thin air. It was as if they had been erased from existence by some force that was beyond human understanding, leaving behind only the echo of their presence and a mystery that would consume investigators, families, and an entire community for decades to come. The night dwellers. The most terrifying discovery was yet to come. For as investigators processed the scene, they began to realize that this wasn't just a case of missing persons. This was something far more sinister. Something that suggested that a predator had been watching, waiting, and planning. Something that implied these 3 women hadn't simply vanished. They had been taken by someone who knew exactly how to make people disappear without leaving a trace. And what was it? Somewhere out there in the shadows of Springfield, or perhaps far beyond, that someone was still walking free. Question number 4. If you discovered that people you loved had vanished without a trace, what would terrify you more? Not knowing what happened, or suspecting that someone was still watching you. Chapter 5. The Web of Suspects. There was one thing that stood out. One of the bulbs on the porch had been broken. Now, when Stacy and Susie arrived home, they said the porch light was on. Neighbors said that the light was on. But that next day, when they began to investigate, when the police arrived, the porch light had been shattered. I wonder what happened. What do you think? Drop your theory in the details. Now, my dear night dwellers, we descend into perhaps the most chilling aspect of our tale. The realization that evil often wears familiar faces. You see, monsters don't always just lurk in dark alleys. Sometimes they live next door, attend the same party that you did, and smile while shaking your hand. As the Springfield Police Department launched what would become one of the most extensive investigations, they discovered something that sent ice through the veins of everyone who knew the missing women. There were no shortage of suspects. Too many threats, too many connections, too many men whose names would surface again and again, like dark shadows cast by a flickering flame. Let's enter into the picture Robert Craig Cox, a name that would become synonymous with the Springfield 3 case, though proving his involvement would prove as elusive as the women themselves. Picture him, night dwellers, a man in his early 20s, brown hair, unremarkable features that allowed him to blend into any crowd. But beneath that ordinary exterior lurks something far from normal. Cox was an Army veteran who had been dishonorably discharged, a drifter with a history of violence and a particular hatred for women. Just months before the Springfield 3 disappeared, Cox had been involved in another terrifying case. In Florida, he had kidnapped and unalived a woman named Sharon Zellers, leaving her body in a remote location where it might have never been found. He was arrested, tried, and sentenced to be unalived for that crime. But here's what makes the blood run cold. Cox had been in Springfield during the exact time period when our 3 women vanished. That gives me chills. More than that, night dwellers, Cox had actually attended some of the same parties as Susie and Stacy. He moved in the periphery of their social circle, a wolf watching the flock, learning their habits, their routines, and their vulnerabilities. When investigators finally tracked Cox down and brought him in for questioning, what they discovered was a man who seemed to take pleasure in their frustration. He would smile when asked direct questions, give contradictory answers, and demonstrate a knowledge of the case that seemed to go beyond what an innocent person should know. First person, Detective Tony's wife, Sarah. Honey, you need to get some sleep, Tony, or you're not going to be helpful to anyone. You have been up for nights now, hunching over these folders night after night. I'm worried about you. It's like you're obsessed over these cases. Honey, 3 women went missing. For all we know, they are unalived. Now you go back to bed. Don't you worry about me. I've got a pot of coffee over there. I'm gonna figure out who did this. Sarah looked at him wounded. I was just... Come here. He grabbed her and hugged her. I have to find who did this, or I won't sleep. Okay. Can I at least make you the cup of coffee? Yeah. They're out there somewhere. Cheryl, Stacy, and Susie are out there somewhere, babe. 3 women. They don't just disappear into thin air. It doesn't happen. I know, that's odd. Someone knows something. Tony tapped the file with a pen. Someone always knows something. But the police weren't the only ones consumed by the hunt, night dwellers. The families of the missing women transformed into amateur detectives as well, following every lead, chasing every rumor, refusing to accept that their loved ones might never truly come home. Janice McCall, Stacy's mother, became a woman possessed. Can you imagine? She organized search parties that scoured every abandoned building, every remote field, every forgotten corner of Missouri. They had candle vigils, night watches, walked the street. She printed thousands of flyers with her daughter's face, drove hundreds of miles to follow tips that led absolutely nowhere, and developed an encyclopedic knowledge of every registered sex offender within a 200-mile radius. She told the press, I will find my daughter. Her eyes were burning with a fever that never broke. I will bring her home, even if it takes the rest of my life. And I want to make a plea once more, not just for the life of my daughter, but for Susie and Cheryl. Let them go. Please, let them go. The case began to attract what investigators called amateur sleuths. I'm one. People from around the country who became obsessed with solving the mystery. They created websites, forums, and chat rooms dedicated to analyzing every piece of evidence, every suspect, every possible theory. Some were helpful, providing fresh perspectives and new leads. Others were dangerous, spreading wild theories that sent investigators down rabbit holes. They wasted precious time and resources. I can't stand those people that do that. That lay sitting there, broken, just waiting for that call to say that their family member is okay, to find out that it's nothing but a lie. Springfield itself began to change too. A town that had once felt safe, where people left their doors unlocked and children played until after dark, became a community living in fear. Women installed security systems, carried pepper spray, and looked over their shoulders when walking to their cars. That still lies today, ladies. Because everyone understood the terrifying truth. If someone could make 3 people disappear so completely from a house in a residential neighborhood, then no one was truly safe. But perhaps the most chilling aspect of the investigation was what began to emerge from the extensive interviews with friends, family, and community members. The more people talked, the more a disturbing pattern became clear. This hadn't been random night dwellers. This had been planned. Someone had been watching these women. Someone had learned their routines, their relationships, their plans for graduation night. They knew that Cheryl was home alone first. The precision of the disappearances, taking all 3 women without leaving evidence, knowing exactly when and where to strike. That's what a predator does. She suggested a level of preparation that chilled investigators to the bone. I'm still shaking my head at how someone could take 3 women at the same time. Were there more than one man? Was it a group of men? What was it? Witnesses began to remember strange incidents in the weeks leading up to the disappearance. A man in a dark car parked across from the beauty salon where Cheryl worked. Someone asked too many questions about Susie's schedule at her part-time job. Stacy mentioning that she felt like she was being followed, but dismissing it as nothing more than paranoia. The investigators realized that they weren't just hunting for 3 missing women. They were hunting for a predator who was still out there, possibly watching other potential victims at this very moment, possibly planning his next strike. As the case gained national attention, the pressure of law enforcement became enormous. Can you imagine 3 women disappearing from the same town, same house? Television shows like Unsolved Mysteries and America's Most Wanted featured the case, bringing in thousands of tips from across the country. Each tip had to be investigated. Each lead followed, each theory explored. The case files grew to thousands of pages. Evidence lockers filled with items collected from searches. The task force expanded to include FBI agents. They had no choice. State investigators and experts in criminal psychology. We've got 17 active suspects, 43 persons of interest, and over 3,000 tips. Detective Glenn reported to his superiors 6 months into the investigation. We've searched hundreds of locations. We've interviewed over 1,000 people, and we're no closer to finding them than we were on day one. Who took them? We will stay up until we find them. What do you recommend? The captain asked. Glenn's voice was hollow with exhaustion. We keep looking. We never stop looking for these women. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit was called in to create psychological profiles of the likely perpetrator. And what emerged was deeply disturbing. They were looking for someone highly organized. Someone who had planned this meticulously down to the very last minute. Someone who took pleasure in the chaos and the pain that his actions had caused. The profile suggested a man between the age of 25 and 40, likely someone who knew at least one of the victims. Possibly someone who'd been rejected or humiliated by a woman and was seeking revenge against all womankind. Someone who might have law enforcement or even military training, giving the precision of the crime. Someone who was possibly still living in the area, feeding off the fear and attention his actions had generated. Maybe had even joined the vigil, the candlelight ceremony on the streets in front of the house. But as the investigation stretched into its second year, 2 years, not one lead, a horrible truth began to dawn on everyone involved. They might never find the Springfield 3. They might never get answers on what happened to this mother and her daughter and her friend. They might never bring the family's closure. And somewhere out there, the person responsible was watching all their efforts, reading about the investigations in the newspapers. They believed that he had even attended the vigils and memorial services for Cheryl, Susie, and Stacy, drinking in the anguish he had caused like a fine wine. The hunt for the Springfield 3 had become more than an investigation. It had become a war between good and evil, between justice and darkness, between hope and despair. And after years of searching, the darkness was winning. Question before intermission: how long would you search for someone you love? How does hope become torment and determination become obsession? Let's take an intermission. Grab a soda, chocolate. I'm craving chocolate, you probably aren't. Chips, popcorn, Cheez-Its, I don't know. Grab it and meet me back here in 5. my lovely night dwellers. How is everyone doing? What are you thinking of this story so far? If you are new here, let me know, and I would like to say hi. I believe that Marika is new. Welcome. It is scary, isn't it? Yeah, very bone-chilling, very, very real. I'm just trying to... Hey, Amber Dowdy, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Hello, Shorty. Welcome. Shorty, do you like scary stories? You are most welcome, Erica. Most welcome. Thank you for the follow. Thank you, W.W. Murphy.'t you. I guess what I'm having a hard time trying to wrap my mind around. 1, yes. 2, 3. You saw it, Lulu? When I watched a documentary on it, and then I started doing more and more research. It's like they just vanished off the face of the earth, and I just don't. It's just, it's mind-boggling, really. I mean, it really, really is. For all of you who are just coming in here, my name is Brie Morgan. I am a horror author. I am also a teller of scary stories, paranormal stories, ghost stories, true crime, serial unalivers, Appalachian horror, urban legend, cryptid, horror stories. Did I miss any? Tomorrow night is Paranormal Wednesday. Do you like spooky stories? Then you'll love these. So pleased to have new people in here tonight, new faces, new night dwellers. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You are most welcome. This is a loving, safe, warm, welcoming community. There is no judgment here. I want you to cast your cares aside for 2 hours. Just come in and just listen to a story. Do you remember how it was when your mom or your dad or your Grammy or Grumpy used to tell you a story when you were little? That's what I want to do. I want to tell you a bedtime story every night. Hey, Rotten Savior, how are you? One of the best voices on the planet. Oh, really, Alicia? Oh, wow. Yeah, very odd. Probably because he was in trouble. He was probably, I've heard, I don't know, but I've heard if you go to prison and you did anything toward a child, your time is short there. That's what I've heard. Well, Sandra Jefferson, this is your first time. Is that what they said on the documentary, Lulu? Four minutes. Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, that's what I've always heard with Tony Jean. I mean, you know, just horrific. I have no mercy, no pity for him at all. Thank you, Theodosia. Thank you. So tonight I am wearing green. I forgot to actually show it off tonight. This one is green. It is sequined. It's lovely. It's got a skirt that goes around it, but I just didn't want to, I didn't want anything around my waist tonight. The sleeves are long and billowy. But again, we are dealing with high 90s here in South Carolina, so I am just keeping it modest. It's got a low, it's got pretty low in the back. It's long. So yeah, this is the dress for the evening. Love the actual embroidery on it and the sparkles. So. Hey over there on YouTube. Whew. Turning the fan on. There we go. 1 minute. I am not able to, let me see something here. Hello, Kimmy. Hello, Jester. Hello, Spitfire, over there in YouTube land. Hey, Truth. Welcome everyone in. All right. Who is ready for the second portion of this story? And if you're enjoying it, let me know in the comments. Thank you. Please, if you could, share it. Share the live with friends, family, 5 friends, 10 friends, 15, 20. Look at the likes. We're nearing close to 400K. So thank you so much for that. Do you know someone that likes scary stories, that likes horror, that likes to be chilled before bed? Then tell them about Twisted Tales Live. Are you seeing the comments? Are you seeing the content? I want to thank everyone for commenting. I'm telling you, it is so very important to, I'm going to switch crowns because this one is starting to squeeze. It usually does about halfway through. My oldie but goodie. So thank you for sharing the live. Oh, back to the comments. So please, Night Dwellers, the thing that is going to help us get out there and be known as a worldwide community of scary story lovers is interaction, engagement. So when you see content come through from either Kimmy, Julie, XJ, myself, please do these following steps. Watch it all the way through, from the beginning to the very end. It's so important that you do that, because if you don't, then it shows TikTok you're not interested in what I have to do. You're not interested in the content that I'm posting. So please do that for me. The next thing, hit that arrow. Copy the link. You don't have to share it if you don't want to, but copy the link. That makes it look like, oh, you know what? I'm interested in this, so I'm going to send this on to some other people. Now, if you want to share it with people, then that's fine. I would love that. 2, push the bookmark. Make sure it turns yellow. If you're saving content, that shows TikTok, oh, maybe there's something worth saving here. The most important thing is commenting. Please do not just use emojis. TikTok thinks you're a bot. And it hurts the algorithm, it hurts my content. So please, even if it's just 5 words, I really enjoy the show. I really enjoy the stories. Please do that for me, please. And then finally, like it. Just press that little heart and turn it red. I am so appreciative. No, I don't think it's too busy for a duvet. Also, X is just sending me this good information here. So also we are trying to get monetization on YouTube, and it's a battle because they are very picky and peculiar on what they allow. So we have to have 1,000 followers. We are nearing, I think we're close to 350, and then viewing hours we have to have 4,000, and we're working on that. We're making strides. But you can go to the link tree in my bio on my page, and you can subscribe to TikTok. You don't even have to leave the live, and you can subscribe to YouTube. It's free. Completely free, and you have access to a library of all the lives that I have done for, gosh, months. So you would have access to that as well. Merch is dropping in my link tree in the bio as well. So merch will be in there as well. I will probably show more merch that I have approved on Friday. That is my hope if I can get to it. With that being said, let's get back into story time. If you are just coming in, hey Casper, how are you doing, my love? Let's get back into story time. It's gonna get dark soon. Lower your lights. Lock your doors. Light a candle for ambiance, or to chase the shadows away. Pull your curtains nice and tight. Wrap yourself up with your warmest blanket to avoid the chills that are about to crawl up your spine. And let's begin. Thank you, Casper. So glad you like it. And if you're new here, come in, say hello. We don't bite. Maybe just a little. What secrets do the dead try to tell? There are places, night dwellers, where the veil between this world and the next grow thin. Places where the missing call out from the void, where the dead refuse to rest until justice is served, and where those with the gift or the curse of sensitivity can sometimes hear whispers from beyond. As the third anniversary of the Springfield Three's disappearance approached, the case had grown cold in official terms. Evidence had been analyzed and reanalyzed. Suspects had been questioned and re-questioned, and searches had covered thousands of square miles. But the families refused to give up, and neither, it seemed, did the spirits of the missing women themselves. It was Janice McCall who first decided to consult with those who claimed to speak with the dead. Desperate for any lead at this point because nothing else was coming through. Any hint of where her daughter might be. She reached out to psychic mediums and spiritual advisors from across the country. The first was a woman named Dorothy Allison, a renowned psychic detective who had assisted law enforcement agencies across the nation. When Allison touched a photograph of the three women, she claimed to immediately sense overwhelming darkness. The room was dark, with only candles. They're together. The three are together. I can feel them. They're in a dark place. Underground. Water. Nearby, but not flowing water. Still water and concrete. I see lots of concrete. She described a location that seemed to be some kind of construction site or industrial area. Somewhere the bodies had been buried beneath freshly poured concrete. The vision was so vivid, so detailed, that it sent investigators to examine every construction project that had been active in Springfield during the summer of 1992. But Allison's most disturbing revelation was yet to come. The one who did this, he's still watching. He's still waiting. He sits in his reclining chair and he smiles as he watches the case. Other psychics contacted by the families provided similar but not identical visions. One claimed to see the women in a place with tall trees and rushing water, which matched what Erica had said, suggesting that they had been taken to a remote wooded area. Another insisted they were beneath the parking lot, where many cars come and go daily. But a lot of what they said was similar. But it was a local Springfield woman named Martha Richardson, a psychic, who provided the most specific and chilling reading of all. Richardson claimed to have no psychic abilities, but she said she knew things. She was a librarian, and she was also a skeptic of supernatural claims. But she began having dreams about the Springfield Three that were so vivid and disturbing that she finally contacted the police. I'm not a psychic like these other women that you talk to, but I see things. My mama saw them, my grandma saw them, and her mama before her. I'm going to tell you exactly what I see. You can write it down if you want, or not. I see them in a place with metal and machinery. She told Detective Glenn during a meeting she had requested. Wherever they are, it's loud. It's very loud. Industrial sounds, like generators or air conditioning units running constantly. And I keep hearing water dripping, echoing, like in a cave or an underground tunnel. Richardson's most disturbing vision involves seeing Cheryl Levitt trying to communicate. I see the oldest one, Cheryl. She comes to me when I'm sleeping. She stands at the foot of the bed and she points backward, desperately pointing toward something that looks like a construction site with distinctive architecture. The buildings have unusual roof lines. Maybe it's a hospital or a school complex. I don't know. I just know that they're somewhere loud. It's very loud. It's loud. This description led investigators to Cox Medical Center, which had undergone major construction and renovations in 1992. The timing was perfect, and psychics from multiple sources had mentioned medical or hospital settings in their visions. Ground-penetrating radar was brought in to scan the parking garage that had been under construction during the time of the disappearance. The results were tantalizing but inconclusive. Anomalies in the concrete that could indicate voids where bodies might have been placed. But nothing definitive enough to justify the massive expense and disruption of breaking up the entire garage floor. But the psychics brought more than just location information, night dwellers. They brought warnings too. Multiple psychics independently claimed that the perpetrator was not only still alive, but was actually watching the investigation. The one woman who claimed that she wasn't a psychic, but she knew things, said he sat in his reclining chair and smiled. They described a man who took pleasure in the ongoing pain of the families, who read every news story about the case, who possibly even attended memorial services to feed off the grief and desperation. One psychic said, "He's laughing at all of you," she told the family during a group session. "He thinks he's smarter than everyone, and he's proving that he is, that he's committed the perfect crime. But the dead are patient, my family, and justice will come to him when he least expects it. Just get out of here with your stuff. I don't want to hear it. She doesn't know what she's talking about," a family member said. Strangely, some family members began reporting their own supernatural experiences. Janice McCall claimed that she could sometimes smell Stacy's perfume in empty rooms, or hear her daughter's laughter echoing through the house at night. "I know people think I'm crazy," Janice confided to a reporter years later, "but I feel my daughter. I feel her trying to tell me something, trying to lead me somewhere. She's not at peace, and she won't be until we bring her home." An investigator asked her, "Do you think she's still alive?" No, she's not alive anymore. Perhaps the most chilling information came from a psychic who claimed to have made contact with Cheryl Levitt directly. According to this medium, Cheryl's spirit was filled with rage, not just at her unaliver, but at the fact that her death had been used to lure her daughter and Stacy into the same trap. This psychic was dressed all in black, her fingers covered in multiple rings, long nails. She says she tried to fight. Her voice was shaking as she reported this to Janice. She tried to warn them, but it was too late. She says that the man who took them, he enjoyed their fear. He fed off of it. He told Stacy that if she didn't do as he asked, then he was going to unalive Susie. Cheryl was tied up. He fed off of it. He fed off of what he was telling them. She said he's not done yet. The psychic visions and supernatural experience surrounding the Springfield 3 case created a parallel investigation that existed alongside the official police work. While law enforcement remained skeptical of paranormal claims, they couldn't deny that some of the information provided by the psychics had led to legitimate investigative leads. But more than that, The spiritual dimension of the case suggested something that chilled everyone involved to the bone. If the psychics were right, if the dead could indeed communicate across the veil, then Cheryl, Susie, and Stacy were still out there, somewhere, still suffering, still trying to guide their loved ones to the truth. And in the darkness of Springfield nights, when the wind howls through empty streets and shadows dance in ways that don't match the light, some people swear they can still hear them calling. 3 voices carried on the night air, begging to be found, demanding justice, refusing to rest until their unaliver faces the consequences of his unspeakable crimes. It seems, night dwellers, that the dead have very long memories. Question: do you believe that the dead can speak to us? Yes, I do. My sister did. And if they could, what would be more terrifying? Hearing their voices or realizing they're screaming and no one is listening? I could not hear my sister. I could only see her moving her mouth and pointing. Yes, I absolutely 100% believe that the dead can speak to us. Room. Chapter 8: The Concrete Grave Theory. What lies beneath our feet? Sometimes, night dwellers, the most horrific truths hide in plain sight. Beneath our feet, under the very ground we walk on every day. In places so public and ordinary that no one even thinks to look there. And sometimes, the most evil acts are hidden forever by something as simple and permanent as concrete. So this is one of the theories. By the late 1990s, one theory had emerged as the most compelling and terrifying explanation for the complete disappearance of the Springfield 3. It wasn't supernatural. It wasn't complex, and it wasn't exotic. It was brutally simple and utterly horrifying. They had been buried alive or unalived beneath concrete at a construction site, their bodies forever entombed in the very infrastructure of Springfield itself. But why? Why all 3 women? Summer of 1992 was the time of massive construction and development in Springfield. The city was growing, it was expanding, it was building for the future. Construction crews worked around the clock, pouring foundations, building parking garages, creating the concrete structures that would serve the community for decades to come. The perfect time, in other words, for someone to dispose of 3 bodies in a way that would ensure that they were never found. The theory that gained the most traction centered on Cox Medical Center, specifically the construction of the new parking garage that was being built during the exact time frame of the disappearance. The timing was too perfect to be coincidental. The garage construction began in early 1992 and was ongoing throughout the summer. Picture it, night dwellers. The construction site at night, dark and deserted, except for one man with a truck, an unspeakable cargo. Security was minimal in those days. Construction sites were often left completely unguarded, relying on their isolation and the assumption that no one would have reason to be there after hours. The unaliver could have driven onto the site in the early morning hours of June the 7th, when the concrete for the next day's pour had already been prepared, but not yet used. 3 bodies could be quickly placed in the forms, position where they would be completely covered when the concrete was poured hours later. Concrete, once cured, becomes essentially permanent. It would be virtually impossible to detect bodies buried within a concrete structure without completely destroying that structure. Something that would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars and require absolute certainty that the bodies were there. What made this theory so compelling to investigators was the accumulation of circumstantial evidence. The timing of the construction matched perfectly with the disappearance. The location was easily accessible from the route between downtown Springfield and the Levitt house. And most chillingly, several witnesses reported seeing unusual activity at the construction site in the early morning hours of June the 7th, 1992. A security guard at a nearby building reported seeing a pickup truck at the construction site around 3 a.m., well outside normal construction hours. The truck appeared to be parked near the area where concrete forms had been prepared for the next day's pour, but this is my thing. No truck was seen at the house. No truck was seen in the neighborhood. Unless Cheryl's car was missing from the garage. Perhaps he took them and put them in there. But where does this truck come into play? I thought it was strange, the guard would later tell investigators. Construction workers don't usually show up at 3 a.m. in the morning. But I figured maybe something was checking on something. Maybe making sure everything was ready for the morning shift. More disturbing still, a concrete worker who had been part of the construction crew claimed that when they arrived that morning, that some of the tools appeared to have been disturbed. Tools and equipment that had been carefully arranged the night before were in different positions. Yeah, something wasn't right, the worker told investigators years later when the theory became public. The forms looked different, like someone had been messing around with them during the night. But the supervisor just told us to get to work, and we poured the concrete as scheduled. That concrete night dwellers hardened into what became the floor of a parking garage where thousands of people would park their cars over the following decades. Walking over what might indeed be the final resting place of the 3 unalived women. The theory gained so much traction, though, that in 2010, the families finally convinced authorities to conduct a limited investigation of the parking garage. Ground-penetrating radar was brought in to scan the concrete for anomalies that might indicate the presence of human remains. The results were both tantalizing and frustrating. The radar detected several unusual voids and density variations in the concrete, exactly what might indeed be expected if bodies had been buried in the forms before the concrete was poured. So, there you go. But the anomalies weren't definitive enough to justify the massive expense and disruption that would be required to excavate the garage floor. Hospital administrators balked at the cost and the disruption to their operations. Legal challenges rose over who would pay for the excavation and who would be liable if nothing was found. The families found themselves trapped in a nightmare of bureaucracy and liability concerns. They knew or believed that they knew where their loved ones were buried, but they were powerless to bring them home because of legal and financial obstacles. Janice McCall once said, "They're right there." She was standing in the parking garage and pointing to the ground beneath her feet. "My daughter is right there, and I can't get to her. They won't let me bring her home. They won't let me bury her." But the Cox Hospital parking garage wasn't the only construction site theory. Investigators identified dozens of other locations where concrete had been poured during the summer of 1992. Shopping centers, residential developments, road construction projects, industrial buildings. The truly terrifying reality, night dwellers, was that Springfield in 1992 was a growing city with a construction that was happening everywhere. If someone had wanted to dispose of 3 bodies permanently, they would have had dozens of opportunities to bury them beneath concrete that would never be disturbed. So, what did that mean? Well, it meant that the Springfield 3 could be anywhere. Under a shopping mall where families went to buy clothes for their children. Beneath a school playground where kids played every day. Under a church parking lot where people came to pray and worship. Under the very streets of Springfield, supporting the traffic of daily life, while hiding the evidence of unspeakable evil. To this day, the concrete grave theory remains unproven, but it is compelling. Is it compelling to you? Advanced ground-penetrating radar has improved since 2010, and new technologies might be able to provide more definitive answers about what lies beneath Springfield's concrete structures. But until someone is willing to break open those concrete tombs and look for the truth, the Springfield 3 may remain forever entombed beneath our feet. 3 women whose bodies have become the part of the very foundation, the city that they loved. Their final resting place walked over by thousands of people who never know they're treading upon a grave. Question: how many times do you think you've walked over hidden graves without knowing it. What secrets might lie buried beneath the ordinary places that you visit every day? Chapter 9. The Unending Nightmare. When does a case become a curse? Night dwellers. 33 years of searching, hoping, investigating, and grieving. 33 years of waking up every morning to the same terrible questions. Where are they? Who took them? Are they still alive somewhere? Or have they been at peace all this time while the families suffer in limbo? In a watery grave under concrete. Time, the supposed great healer, has proven to be a liar in the case of the Springfield 3. Instead of dulling the pain, the passing years have only sharpened it, transforming acute grief into chronic agony, turning desperate hope into bitter obsession. Janice McCall. She was once a vibrant woman with dreams of watching her daughter graduate college, marry, and give her grandchildren. Become a ghost. She became a ghost of her former self. Every birthday that Stacy missed, every holiday that passed without her laughter, every milestone that should have been celebrated became instead another wound that refused to heal. She said in an interview once, "People tell me that I should move on." It was on the 20th anniversary of her daughter's disappearance. They say I should accept that Stacy is gone and try to rebuild my life. But how do you move on when you don't know if your child is dead or if she's somewhere out there waiting for you to find her? It's the not knowing, night dwellers. That's the special torture reserved for families of the disappeared. I've been there. Death brings grief, but it also brings closure. Funerals, graves to visit, a place to leave flowers. The disappeared leave behind only questions and the terrible possibility that somewhere, somehow, they might still be suffering. The case consumed not just families, but also the law enforcement officers who worked it. Detective Tony Glenn, the lead investigator, carried the Springfield 3 with him long after he retired. The case files followed him home every night. The photographs of 3 smiling women that I showed you at the beginning haunted his dreams, and the weight of his failure to find them pressed down on him like a physical burden. But even after his official retirement, Glenn continued working the case as a volunteer, following up on tips, re-interviewing witnesses, chasing leads that had been cold for decades. His wife found him at the kitchen table at 3 in the morning, retired, surrounded by evidence, photos, and witness statements, muttering to himself about missed connections and overlooked clues. They trusted me to find them. He would say when asked why he couldn't let the case go. 3 families trusted me to bring their loved ones home, and I failed them. How do you retire from a failure like that? Springfield itself bears the scars of the case. What was once an innocent, trusting community became a place where parents don't let their children walk alone, where women check their locks twice before bed. You should. Where every missing person reports sends a chill of recognition through the collective memory. The case spawned dozens of copycat theories and false confessions. Every time someone went missing in Missouri, even temporarily, investigators had to consider whether it might be connected to the Springfield 3 case. Every anonymous tip, every strange phone call, every suspicious person reported in the area had to be investigated as if it might finally be the breakthrough that everyone was waiting for. Over the years, the case attracted national attention again and again. Documentary filmmakers, true crime podcasters, and mature investigators and conspiracy theorists all descended on Springfield, each convinced that they could solve the mystery that has stumped law enforcement for decades. Some came with good intentions, genuinely wanting to help find answers. Others came as vultures, feeding off the pain of families for content, clicks, and fame. The families found themselves reliving their worst nightmare again and again, answering the same questions, hearing the same theories, clinging to the same diminishing hope that this time, someone might have the answer. Every few years, a new breakthrough would emerge. A new suspect would be identified. A new location would be searched. A new theory would capture public attention. Their families would allow themselves to hope again. Reporters would descend on Springfield again. And for a brief moment, it would seem like answers might finally be at hand. But every breakthrough became another dead end. Every promising lead dissolved under scrutiny. Every surge of hope was followed by the crushing weight of continued uncertainty. In recent years, advances in technology have brought new possibilities. DNA testing that didn't exist in 1992 can now extract genetic information from the smallest of samples. Ground-penetrating radar has become more sophisticated. Facial recognition software can analyze thousands of images in minutes. But these advances also highlight how much evidence has been lost or contaminated in the early days of the investigation. Before anyone realized how complex and long-lasting this case would become. Robert Craig Cox died in prison in 2013, taking whatever secrets he might have known to the grave. Other suspects have aged, died, or simply disappeared into their own obscurity. New names surface occasionally, but they too fade away under investigation. The Springfield 3 case has become more than just a missing persons investigation. It has become a symbol of every parent's worst nightmare, every community's darkest fear, every investigator's most haunting failure. It has inspired changes in how missing persons cases are handled, though. how evidence is preserved, how families are supported during long investigations. The lessons learned from the failures and successes of this case have helped solve other disappearances, bringing closure to other families even as the Springfield 3 families continue to wait. Did you know that every year on June the 7th, a small group gathers at the Levitt House, now owned by others, but forever marked by tragedy, to remember 3 women who should have lived full, beautiful lives, should have grown old surrounded by people who loved them, should have had children, grandchildren, should have left behind something more than questions and sorrow. Where are they? Where did they go? Janice McCall, now in her 70s, still attends these vigils when health permits. She still carries photographs of Stacy, still answers calls from people who think that they might have a tip, still believes that someday, somehow, her daughter will come home. The Springfield 3 case has become a living ghost story, not supernatural, but something far more terrifying. Proof that in our modern world, with all our technology and resources and determination, 3 people can still simply vanish, as if they never existed at all. Question 9. How long would you wait for answers that might never come? At what point does hope become a form of torture? Chapter 10. The Eternal Mystery. What happens when some secrets refuse to die? And so we come to the end of our journey through the darkness, my dear night dwellers. Though for the families of the Springfield 3 there is no end, only the endless rotation of days and nights, seasons and years, all marked by absence and unanswered questions. Today, as I speak these words to you across the digital void, the case remains officially open. The Springfield Police Department still receive tips, still follow leads, still hopes that someday the call will come that brings resolution to the decades-old nightmare. But let us consider what we have learned in our descent in this particular abyss. We have seen how evil can wear familiar faces, how monsters can walk amongst us undetected, how the most horrific crimes can happen in the most ordinary of places. We have witnessed the devastating power of the unknown, how not knowing can be worse than the most terrible truth. The Springfield 3 case has become a modern legend, a cautionary tale whispered in the night about the fragility of safety, the vulnerability of innocence, and the terrible possibility that some questions will never have answers. Theories continue to circulate through the dark corners of the internet where amateur investigators gather to dissect every detail of the case. Some believe the women were taken by a serial unaliver who struck once and then disappeared. Others maintain that they were unalived by someone they knew, someone who had been watching and planning for months. Still others whisper about government cover-ups, organized crime connections, and secrets so dark that Powerful people will do anything to keep them buried. In the absence of facts, though, conspiracy theories flourish like poisonous flowers in the darkness. Now, technologies offer tantalizing possibilities, as I stated earlier. Genetic genealogy has solved cold cases that seemed absolutely hopeless. Advanced forensic techniques can extract information from evidence that was considered useless decades ago. Social media or crowdsourcing have brought fresh eyes to mystery. Who knows? Maybe one of you, night dwellers, are an amateur sleuth. Maybe you will be the one that finds the evidence. But the Springfield 3 case suffers from a fundamental problem. There's no crime scene. No bodies. No definitive evidence of what happened or where it happened. That's the facts. Without these crucial elements, even the most advanced technology can only do so much. Perhaps that was the brilliance of the crime, night dwellers. If brilliance is a word that can be applied to such evil. The perpetrator didn't just murder 3 women. He erased them so completely and so thoroughly that even their deaths remain uncertain. He created a void where lives once existed, a hole in reality that has never been filled. The families age, but their pain does not. Is as fresh as it was the day they disappeared. Janice McCall's hair has gone gray, her steps have slowed, but her determination to find her daughter burns as brightly as it did 30 years ago. The other family members soldier on, carrying their grief like a weight that can never be set down. Springfield remembers even as new generations grow up knowing the story only as a local legend. The house on Delmar Street has changed hands multiple times. But locals still slow down when they drive past it. They still feel a chill when they think about what happened there. And somewhere, perhaps in Springfield, perhaps far away, perhaps in a grave that will never be found, the truth awaits. The person or persons responsible for the Springfield 3 disappearance may indeed still be alive, still walking free, still carrying the secret of what happened on that June night in 1992. If the perpetrator is still alive, he has lived for over 30 years with the knowledge that he committed the perfect crime. He has watched the investigations, read the news stories, seen the anguish of the families, and known that he outsmarted literally everyone. But perfect crimes exist only in the minds of those who commit them, night dwellers. Truth has a way of surfacing when least expected. Secrets have a way of revealing themselves. And sometimes, justice comes not through investigation or evidence, but through the simple passage of time. And the weight of guilt that grows heavier with each passing year. The Springfield 3, light a candle for them tonight. Cheryl Levitt, Suzanne Streeter, and Stacy McCall deserve to be remembered, not just as victims of an unsolved mystery, but as the vibrant, loving, hopeful women they were. They deserve justice. They deserve peace. And their families deserve answers. So we remember them tonight, night dwellers. We speak their names. We We tell their story, and we refuse to let them disappear completely into the darkness that claimed them. We keep their memory alive, and we never stop hoping that someday, the truth will finally come to light. Because in the end, the most terrifying thing about the Springfield 3 case is not that 3 women disappeared without a trace. It's the knowledge that whoever made them disappear is still out there somewhere. Maybe watching this show. Perhaps listening to every word. Perhaps remembering that night in 1992. Perhaps planning, or perhaps simply smiling in his recliner at how perfectly he erased 3 lives from existence. The Springfield 3 vanished into darkness, but their story, their mystery, their tragedy, their unending call for justice, that will haunt us forever. And so, my precious night dwellers, we reach the end of another journey into the darkest corners of human experience. The Springfield 3 have shared their story with us tonight. Or rather, we have shared in their silence, their absence, their eternal mystery. As you return to your own lives, to your own beds, to your own sense of safety and security, remember that somewhere in Springfield, Missouri, 3 families still wait for answers that may never come. 3 women still cry out from the void for justice, for peace, for someone to finally bring them home. The darkness that consumes Cheryl, Susie, and Stacy is still out there, night dwellers. It walks among us in forms we cannot recognize, wearing faces we would never suspect, planning horrors we cannot imagine. The Springfield 3 case reminds us that evil is not always obviously monstrous. No. Sometimes it appears so ordinary, so normal, so innocuous that we never see it coming until it's too late. So tonight, as you lay your heads on your pillows and close your eyes, remember what we have learned in the night realm. Trust your instincts. Lock your doors, ladies and gentlemen. Watch for the signs, and never, ever assume that because something seems impossible, that it cannot happen. It can. The Night Queen has shared this tale with you tonight, woven it into your consciousness like a spider spinning her web. And just as those 3 beautiful souls vanished into darkness, their story will now live forever in the shadows of your memory, waiting to resurface in your quietest moments, reminding you that some mysteries are too dark to ever truly solve. Springfield streets where shadows play. 3 women walked, then slipped away. No trace, no sound, no final scream, just vanished like a troubled dream. I am the queen who rules the night, where missing souls have lost their light. I weave their tales in darkness deep, where restless spirits cannot sleep. Cheryl, Susie, Stacy too, their mystery I give to you. In concrete graves or wooden layers, their ghosts climb up your midnight stairs. Their killer walks among you still, with practiced smile and iron will. He reads these words. He knows my name and feels no guilt, admits no shame. But justice waits with patient eyes. Truth lives beneath the darkest lies. The missing dead refuse to rest until their unaliver's heart is blessed. With judgment from the abyss black, no running forth, no turning back. The Night Queen sees where daylight hides, where evil lurks and darkness bides. So sleep, my children, sleep tonight. But know that I control the fright. These stories that I weave with care will follow you everywhere. In dreams that twist and nightmares breed, I plant each dark and twisted seed. The Springfield 3 will haunt your sleep, their secrets buried dark indeed. You cannot run. You cannot hide. I'm always walking by your side. In every shadow, every door, I whisper tales of death and more. My stories bury deep where they cannot flee. In the darkest corridors of your nightmares. You belong to me. You do?